I do an audit of my calendar for time and energy. I mean, at the end of the day, you shouldn't be hiring people to grow your business. You should be hiring people to buy back your time.
I'm curious, you've sold 3 businesses, you have a large personal brand, and you're helping thousands of other founders build their brand, build their business. How does a founder go about building a flywheel in their business to go from kind of 7 figures to 8 figures to exit?
Yeah, I think what happens is at each stage of growth. So think of it this way. I've and for context, not only have I scaled my own companies and exited those, I've, as you mentioned, I work with thousands of, scaling companies. It's funny because I have 1,000 clients in our coaching programs, and I've built the curriculum for each stage. And the way I break it down is like 0 to 300K. That's and people are like, oh, I don't know how, that sounds easy. It's actually quite hard because it requires you to focus, do one thing for one customer, one marketing channel. So there's this whole scaling credo framework I teach. And the reason why it's hard for a lot of people is they don't learn the skill that unlocks the next level, which is learning how to delegate, right? Some people, think about doctors, lawyers, specialists, they can make 300 a year and that'll be their cap because they don't know how to delegate. So if you don't understand how to work with other people, which there's a lot of entrepreneurs that don't, you go further ahead and you still don't learn that skill, you just have pain, right? So that's the first level. The next level is to learn how to do that well, how to delegate well, how to work with other people, what I call transactional management versus transformational leadership, right? Transactional management is tell them what to do, check that they got it done, tell them what to do next. Transformational leadership is clear outcome, measurement that we negotiate, and then coach them to success. So if you learn that, then that gets you at about 2 million in revenue. Okay. And this is why a lot of companies are stalled out at about 12 employees, 15 employees, a couple million in revenue. And usually the founder's day looks something like wake up, spend the whole day telling people what to do. And then by the time you actually find a moment to breathe, your head's down on your own projects. It's usually 8 to 12 at night, do nothing all day, come back to your desk and have to work. And then the level from 2 to 10 and beyond, I think for most people listening, that's kind of where they're at that level, even though I coach people to 100 million. The 2 to 10 is learning how to hire people that drive outcomes. Okay. Or said another way, it's the who, not how problem. Most entrepreneurs don't know how to hire those people. They don't know how to lead those people. And essentially, because a lot, anybody that can do that, right? If somebody's capable to scale marketing, to scale sales, to scale fulfillment, you've got to be able to show up and convince them that you've got something interesting, valuable, and supportive to their lives to make that happen. And that is a skill that most CEOs never develop, is how do you hire these drivers, these people that, can really 10x your business. So that to me is when I think of people and I ask them what size of team you are, what revenue level, I'm always throttling and correcting my feedback and advice to the right stage.
Makes sense. And so when you think about, a business that's getting from say 6 figures to 7 figures and looking to go and delegate some core tasks, what are the kind of steps to delegation that you kind of deploy? What's the system there?
Yeah, it's very simple and it works at all levels. It's called the buyback loop, right? So most people get stuck because they essentially end up building businesses that they grow to hate. I mean, that's the truth. And why do they hate it? Well, they did a bunch of stuff they shouldn't be doing. They said yes to stuff they should have said no to. They don't know how to delegate. And the way that I work people through that is essentially and I do this in my own life, right? Is I do an audit of my calendar for time and energy. I mean, at the end of the day, you shouldn't be hiring people to grow your business. You should be hiring people to buy back your time. That's the core idea behind the Buy Back Your Time book. And if I look at the things in my calendar, right, doing a time and energy audit that are energy takers, tasks or projects or things that I'm doing that take my energy and that would be low dollar amounts to pay somebody else to do, then it's actually mathematically ridiculous for people to work on things that they could pay somebody else to do, right? That takes their energy. So if they haven't figured out how to do that, that's the first step, right? And it's just what happens is the business gets bigger. You just have a higher dollar amount that you could leverage to hire people to take those things out of your calendar. But mathematically, that's how we scale, is we free up the space. So I call it the audit, transfer, fill. Those are the 3 steps of the buyback loop. We audit time and energy to find who we hire next to free up that time. We transfer it to them using this process called the camcorder method, which I teach. And then the third part is the fill. And most people don't know what to do with newfound time. So newfound time is meant to invest into do things that light you up, that give you more, more money, right? Because if it doesn't, then why did you buy back that time? You should just keep doing the thing you're doing. So the fill for me is 3 core areas. Number 1 is skills, right? We need to invest in ourselves so that we have the capability of creating more value. And that skill could be delegation, creating an SOP, leading better, communicating better, like whatever that gap is. And for some people, like my high-end clients, it's setting vision. It's understanding financial projections and to understand culture. Like high-level problems require completely different level skills. The second area, and I call this the ladder of growth, is, left side of the ladder skills, right side of the ladder's beliefs, right? What are your worldviews? Some people have worldviews. I have a friend of mine, Rachel, and the other day she was talking and she's like, I don't want to build a big agency. I'm good. I'm just going to keep building the thing I have and keep it small and just make it hyper profitable. And in the same breath, she's telling me that she doesn't have time to go to the gym or, be in a relationship or whatever it is. So it's like, okay, cool. I hope people see the contradictory nature of this. It's like, I don't want to grow my business, would you give me more resources to have people on my team to free up my time? And yet, because I want to be profitable, so you have more profit, but then you don't have the time to go do the things that are going to add a lot of value to your life, like be in a high quality relationship and have time for your physical health and all these things that at the end of the day, when you're on your deathbed, those are the things you're going to remember. The people you spent time with doing experiences, not that project you did for a customer. So that's the belief side is they have negative beliefs that stop them from growing. So that you actually have to invest in that, right? The mindset side. And then the third part is the character traits, things like mental toughness, consistency, communication, habits. The character traits are kind of like locking in the skills and the beliefs so that you now create the steps required to move forward. Because, if you have the skills, but you don't have the beliefs, you're just not going to make forward progress. And that to me is why the buyback loop is so important. Is at each stage for us to get to the next level, we have to develop ourselves. It's very simple. The world doesn't get easier. We get better. Jim Rohn said this a long time ago, that we wish, people are like, oh, I wish the world was easier. I wish these problems were smaller. And I would argue you should instead wish that you were better, that you could deal with higher, what I call factors of zero problems. It's like $10 problems to $100 problems, $1,000 problems, the whole stage you want to get in. Like if you don't have $1 million company, you should be wishing for $100,000 problems. Because if you don't, then you'll never have them, which means you'll never have $100,000 months in revenue opportunities.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that the belief side of it is an important factor, because I think that doesn't get oftentimes talked about enough. But, you start to talk to founders and you see that whether they're perfectionists or they don't believe they're deserving of charging a higher price. And it really is like that belief system that they have, those self-limiting beliefs that oftentimes are holding them back from unlocking that next level of their business and even other areas of their life as well. I'm curious, given the thousands of founders you've worked with, what are some of those like core limiting beliefs that you see? And when you talk about investing and helping solving those things, like how does one go about actually investing to kind of break through those beliefs?
Well, I think step one is to know that you have them, right?
Right.
So, oftentimes when I'm working with a client, I'll ask them a question. If somebody bought your business tomorrow, what's the first thing they would change? And they go, oh, well, they probably would fire this person, stop doing this, create this opportunity, whatever it is. And then my follow-up question to that is, well, what stopped you from making that decision? Mm-hmm. And in that answer lies the kernel of the beliefs that could be wrapped around these fake beliefs. Like, well, I would do that, but it feels like a lot of work. It's like, that's not the real belief. Usually it's the fear of rejection. It's the fear of failure. Like, what if I go down this path and I fail in a public way now that I've got something to lose? A lot of clients I coach, these are people that came from nothing and they've built something. And because they've built something, they don't want to lose it. So essentially on that climb up the mountain, they got to a place where they started to feel comfortable. And instead of continuing the climb, they set up camp and they literally stopped that climb halfway up the mountain. But they know in their soul, there's more to give, right? They know that they were meant to do more. And there's this like gnawing tension inside where it's like, I just don't want to lose it, right? That's a belief, right? Nobody's asked you to put it all on the line. There's no projects, there's no conversation, which is like, take your net worth, put it all in the center of the table, and let's roll the dice. But yet they act this way, right? So first part is to just understand that these are driving thoughts that are creating behaviors that you're taking action around that are just not supportive anymore. Right. So, recently I was coaching one of my clients on their fear of essentially partnerships, right? They've had incredible success in their life to that point in their career, right? He's been in business for 30 plus years, but he knows his next level of opportunity is going to partner with other investors, with other, manufacturers, et cetera, to create this level that he knows he can operate. Like he knows it in his soul. This is what I was meant to do. I've done 30 years of this industry to create more. And when you start understanding and unpacking the belief, the mindset around that, what he discovered is his biggest fear for himself was the fear of rejection. And if I partner with somebody, even if it's not my fault, because I don't control this, I don't want somebody I admire to think that I'm not capable. And that fear is stopping him. This is what was crazy is, one of the things we do with people is I sit down and I have them define kind of 25 years from now, it's called the 10X vision map in my book. List what you want your life to look like. Be descriptive, be very clear. I think a crystal clear vision creates forward movement. Okay. Most people that are having issues in their life because they don't have a vision for that area of their life. It's their health, wealth, relationship, whatever. They need a crystal clear vision. So we work on that. And he says to me on one of our calls, he goes, "This is crazy." I said, "What?" He goes, "Everything I've ever wanted on my 25-year vision would be in my life today if I had solved the partnership problem." Like that was he's just like, I can't believe it. Everything I've ever wanted to achieve, big possessions and contributions and all this stuff. If I would have solved this problem today, 15 years ago, I would have had the resources to create this life. And it never occurred to him. And when I talked to him, we unpacked it. And the way I saw it is he was being selfish. And I'll tell you why, Matt. A lot of people don't realize how selfish they are. Is kind of like the analogy I explained to him is what I was hearing from him is the equivalent of seeing somebody in the water drowning and throwing a life preserver at him. That's what he'd always done in his life. This is a guy that instead of partnering with somebody, he would write a check for $100,000. I'd rather give my money to a project than being involved in having my name to it. It was safer for me to dispose of my capital and support you that way, because I don't want to say no, because I don't want you to reject me, but I don't want to get involved because I don't want you to think I'm incompetent, or I don't want you to be upset with me if it doesn't work out. So person's drowning, throws a life preserver instead of jumping in and saving them himself, swimming with them, getting in the water. And as soon as I explained that to him and he connected the future he wanted with the past that, he knew that was showing up in all different areas of his life, the way he partnered with people in business. In business, you learn really quick that there's a skill of making other people wealthy. To the degree that you can create wealth for other people on your team, your business will grow. If you're the only person ever getting wealthy from the business growing, then you will always feel like nobody is willing to show up the way you want them to show up. And you feel like you're always trying to cajole people forward. And you always feel like people are underperforming because you haven't created the incentive process to be naturally a forward polling kind of concept. And I just think that, mindset wise is once understanding it, then double clicking on it, and then trying to map the compelling future to the negative past missed opportunities to create that gap to make it a motivating decision today to push it forward. Because if we don't have that, then it's a nice to have, not a must have. And when I work with people, we're creating must haves. I don't, it's very clear. Until I can get the person to say enough's enough, today's the day, we're going to bury that belief now needs to go die. We stay on it and work through it.
Yep.
And then once we unlock it, then the behavior will be a byproduct of those beliefs.
That's amazing. You're a high performance founder. You have helped thousands of other founders. You're a father. You're a husband. You're an author now as well. I'm curious, what's your 10-year vision?
My 10-year vision is just doing more of what I do. I've got three parts to my life. I'm incredibly involved in all things software. I run the largest CEO coaching group for software CEOs. I have a $100 million fund today, and it'll be bigger in the future, where we buy software companies. So buy 100% control, grow them. It's called Big Band Software. That's one area of my life. And then the other one is the book and really my contribution. I would say my personal brand, anything that supports just literally teaching everything I've ever learned. I'm a byproduct. I ended up in prison twice by the age of 17. I grew up in a really challenging environment, and I had some very key people show up in my life to guide me forward. And I've known since I was 17 that I'm not going to take this life for granted. I'm going to show up with intentionality to honestly honor those people. I was literally messaging one of them yesterday. There's this incredible guy that I met in rehab, and he became like a older brother for me, Rick. And I literally was thinking about him. And that's just something I do. Anytime I think of somebody, I just take the time to send them a message, because I realize there's a reason why they're on my heart. And, this is 25 years later. It's still a big part of me. So that's the second part. So contribution on that front. I mean, really just keep doing what I'm doing. It's just sharing the message. The book was step one, but now it's to support people implement the book, right? I just got off a call with I have a technical team, and we're building a full suite of essentially AI chat prompts and or tools to help people buy back their time. It's a big opportunity. It's just something that speaks to my soul, because software became my new addiction once I got sober. And it's a very unique aspect of what makes me me. It's just, I love code. I love technology. I love innovation, but at the same time, I love business and mindset stuff. Right. So, I would say that's the second pillar in my life. And then the third is community, just like contribution to, my church, my health, right? Like the races, the organization, the people, the relationships, the entrepreneurial community, the homeless community. I mean, it's just that those are all big areas. So honestly, I guess to other people, they would seem like big aspirations, increasing my net worth to over $1 billion, building out multiple $100 million funds for different verticals in the software company, to building an audience of 10 million plus people on social, like all those like numerical goals over the next decade. But in my mind, they're very simple, because they continuously fit in one of those three areas. So anytime I'm looking at my calendar and I'm trying to figure out, how do I calibrate? I'm always like, okay, is this good? If this trend line continues, yep, that's going to happen. We're good there. Let's keep that going. Where's an opportunity around the book? So like the AI stuff, and then the community. Right now I'm working on a project to essentially donate 10,000 copies of Think and Grow Rich to every high school kid in my city. Right. Wow. As a thought experiment. Because I remember one day I was like at my house with my friend Trent. We were looking over the city, because I live up on the side of a mountain. And I was thinking, because Think and Grow Rich was such an important book to him. And I go, what if we gave every high school kid a copy? And he's like, whoa. And like, what would the economic impact of that be? Like if you fast forward over the next 20 years, right? And not only like one time, but what if that was just default protocol on graduation day that every high school kid? So found out there's about 5,000 kids that graduate every year. And, I connected with the organization, and I've got at least books at cost. And, the hardest part right now is the last mile. It's literally getting the book in the hands of the high school kids, because schools, and I didn't even think about this when I set this goal, are not very open to material that they haven't reviewed and approved being distributed to their students. Fascinating. But that's the hiccup there. But again, I'm just such an optimist and so persistent that I just keep putting it out there in the world. I keep telling people, I keep asking, I keep meeting people, I keep telling them. And then, at some point somebody's gonna be like, I can do that. I can make it happen. Or we're going to run this Facebook ad, or we're going to run this event, and then we're going to give everybody the book as they walk in, and it's going to happen. Like, I just know it in my soul, because I wouldn't have had that idea in my heart to do in the first place. But yeah, 10 years from now is just more of what I'm doing. But serving people at a higher level.
And how would you go kind of accomplishing those 10-year goals that you have in this big vision, not only on the net worth side, but making an impact on your community, having bigger contributions? How would you go about accomplishing that, like in a year, if you could?
Here's what I'm gonna walk people through a process, right? And I've never shared this publicly, so I'll give it to your audience as an exclusive, because it's what I teach my high net worth clients that I coach, and it's a few things, but let's just assume you have a vision for your life. Most people don't. Chapter 12 of my book, 10X Vision Map. Go get a vision for your life, because without that, everything else I'm going to say is kind of pointless. So we have a vision. The good news is it doesn't even have to be accurate. You need to have it. Like, that's the funny part. You're allowed to change it. But what you do is the 12-month goal is, I like to break them down. Let's say personal, professional, maybe some level of health or contribution. But you have 12 goals, right? And you make them SMART. Okay, specific, measurable, attainable, time bound. So you get these 12 specific goals, and we'll use one as an example, right? Let's say my goal was to get to, and one of mine this year, and I'm already there, but it's 220 pounds, 9% body fat, VO2 max of 48. Okay. So like that, thank you. But most people don't, they hear that and they're like, whoa, why is that different? It's very specific. Like, think about that. I know what I'm going to weigh. I know my body composition. I know my body fat percentage, and I know my output potential, the VO2 max, right? Most people are like, how do you measure that? There's tools, you can go figure it out. So, then it's okay. So now that I understand my goal, then what is the standard? Okay. Standard is, James Clear talked about it. He said, we don't rise to the level of our goals. We fail to the level of our systems. So the standard to me is what needs to be true to make that outcome goal inevitable. And that is the conversation. Okay. So when I'm working with clients, I'm asking, what needs to be true about your day, your week, your month that makes that goal inevitable? The system, the standard. So for example, that health goal would be 2,000 calories or less per day consumption, workout every day, and 200 grams of protein, because of the different factors, right? And some people are like, well, I wouldn't even know how to come up with that. Perfect. Go read a book. Go watch a YouTube video. Go ask for help. The fact that you don't know is perfect. It is identifying where you have a skill gap for you to go and improve your knowledge, okay? Then the next level underneath that is resources. Okay. So this is a big one. Most people don't consider this. I write down the resources, people, trainings, books that I know will support that. It could be physical objects. So had to buy a body fat scanning machine, right? So that was one of the resources I wrote down. I wrote down names of people that I know that have achieved that outcome already. Okay. I literally wrote their names out, 3, 4, 5 people. I wrote down some training, some courses, right? Next year for me, a big part of my focus will be around like plyometrics and like mobility and range of motion. And I've already bought my courses for that. Like I literally last week, I was like, okay, I'm going to get this guy's thing. But resource is a key area. So now I've got the clear outcome. I've got the standard. I've got the resources, and I'll tell those people. Okay. So one of those people was my brother, Pierre. He's incredibly fit. He's not, he physically looks fit. Like he's strong, low body fat, but he doesn't move enough. Okay. So, but in regards to the like strength, essentially the body fat percentage, all that, it's like, okay. So I told him my goal. I shared that with him. Okay. Why? Public accountability, positive peer pressure. It's now part of who I am. Then I go another level lower, which is triggers. Okay. So for me, I identify these moments in time when I review the goal. See, most people build a plan for the year, write it down, put it in a drawer. They don't even look at it. They put it on their notes on their phone. They put it in a Notion file, whatever. And they never review it. I review my 12-month goals for this year 3-4 times a day. 3-4 times a day. Right before this call, I actually messaged you on Instagram. I said, hey man, I'm done early. You want to chat? And so I didn't get a response. Cool. I went and sat down, reviewed my goals. move this forward, thought of that. Visualize. Yeah. Just like, to me, there's certain chairs and rhythms and routines where I trigger the thing I need to review. Okay. And I use and I allow the universe, okay, to inspire me to take action around it. And oftentimes it's a text message, a phone call, or whatever. Then the next level below that is a reward. Okay. And a reward is on the journey of this goal. You have a date, you have the outcome, etc. I will put ideally three, sometimes two, sometimes four, it doesn't matter, but let's say three timelines for milestones along that journey. Okay. So for example, one of them was a ski trip I did in January. And this is why, for me, if you make the painful enough, then the doing isn't hard. Usually all of my health goals are experience focused, right? Family trips, personal stuff, and all my financial ones are possession focused. I don't know why, it just feels good to my brain. If I want to buy something, so this is what's crazy. I will put the things I want to buy, even though I could afford them, behind a reward of an outcome, because that feels like I've earned it. Like, I just don't like to have things handed to me. I don't like for things, I like to earn and create the opportunities. So, for example, January, I do a ski trip every year. Like, based on the trend line, I have to get to this level of fitness for me to unlock that. If I don't go on the ski trip. Think about that, Matt.
Wow.
If I don't
serious.
get,
that's an epic ski trip from what I hear from Holmes and others.
It's next level. Yes. And if I didn't show up, like, they'd be like, that's weird, but I wouldn't have went. Same thing with my family trip in March. We have spring break. We went to Cabo with the family. We were 4 other families. If I didn't achieve the goal, I wouldn't have went on the trip. And my wife hates that I do this, because sometimes she's like, are you seriously not going to come? It's like, hey, now what's cool? Think about that. She doesn't want me to fail. So do you think when we're out for dinner, she asks me if I want to share a dessert? Nope. So think about that idea, that when you start tying your outcomes to your standards, to some resources, to the rewards, to the triggers, it makes what you're trying to accomplish inevitable. Most people are not willing to do the work, to think through it, to hold themselves accountable, to get those outcomes. And that's just how I do it. It's why I'm able, when people are like, man, the other day, somebody messaged me and they go, do you ever slow down and take it all in, what you've created in your life? Because they knew me as a teenager in school, when literally I was I was voted most likely to end up dead in a ditch, right? And they have no idea the level of discipline and focus that I bring to my life to create these things. And I get it. They're watching from outside. They don't know me. They don't, And the answer is, hell yeah, I know. But I also know the amount of work I did. I know what I do every day. And to the degree it doesn't come off as annoying, I try to share it publicly. I try to share my journey, my setbacks, the injuries, the missteps, the whatever it is. It's like the good and this challenges. I try to put it out there, because to me, like, I've got nothing to prove to anybody. Zero. Like, I'm winning on house's money. I'm playing every day. It's like, it's creating this, and maybe that's one of my competitive advantages. I literally think I've already won, and every day that I get to play the game is a bonus day. So I just keep playing it, keep doing it, keep showing up, try to be of service. I mean, that's my number one question I ask myself every morning is, who needs my best work today? Who needs my best work today? Who's listening that needs me to be 110% today? Because I'm here for you. Like, I want to show up for this call to be the best version of myself. And because of that, I'm crazy grateful. Like, do I ever stop and think about it every day, man? I pinch myself. I look around. I go, how is this real? How does this book be a bestseller? How do I have an audience of people that want to interview me on their podcast? Like, that wasn't part of my reality growing up in the East Coast of Canada. Like, it's just, I don't take it for granted for 1 second of any day.
Yeah, I really resonate with the aspect of, like, play being a big motivator, community service, like things that are bigger than you. Being a key motivator and kind of driving you towards your goals. And, I have a similar system with my kind of personal board meeting system. I have a Google slide deck, my personal goals, my business goals, key mentors around me, and where I'm looking to go over the next 10 years, 3 years, 1 year, 90 day, and kind of in Google Slides on my phone as well. Same thing, late for a meeting, going for a walk in the morning, grabbing a nice Americano, whenever, just kind of flipping through that deck and getting clear on, okay, right, this is my North Star. This is where I'm looking to go. And this is how what I'm doing today ladders up to where I'm trying to go in my life. So really big on that. And I think there's too many people that have those goals, but they don't visit them enough. They write them down one time going into their New Year's resolution, stow it away in some cabinet or some folder in Notion, like you mentioned, and then that's that. And the reality is, like, viewing that every day just starts to kind of imprint that feeling, that vision in your mind, and helps you see where the little things add up to create that kind of big vision. I'm curious, like, on your way to kind of, building this like empire you have built, and, you clearly have continued aspirations to build it even bigger. You talk a lot about focus. And I think this is something that a lot of people struggle with, where we live in an age of distraction between social media, and as business owners, you're constantly getting distracted with new emails, new requests, new opportunities. How do you kind of decide on the 20% of things that are going to have 80% of the impact, and then, say no to the rest?
The reason why I'm able to say no and have focus is because I have clarity of vision and time. Both are required. If I don't know what I'm aiming to, then anything is a potential path to get me there. So because I have clarity of vision, and I can break it back down into this week, this quarter, then I use my calendar. And that's what was a big topic of my book, Buyback Your Time, was the concept of a perfect week. I've allocated the buckets of time that I'm going to show up and produce, when I'm going to create, when I'm going to have meetings, media production, all that stuff. So then the question is, how do I use that time to, again, create a scenario where it's inevitable that I will achieve this outcome? So because I have an understanding of how I've allocated my time, I have clarity of vision, then when new opportunities come into my life, I can immediately go, is this additive or subtractive? Is this better than what I was about to do at my time, or worse? Is it a distraction towards, because I've already allocated what I need to do to make the thing happen. So, the other day, somebody asked me, they literally wanted to pay me, I think it was private. They're going to fly me private to go speak at their event. It was a 7-day event. I had to stay on this private island, and, and they were going to pay me my speaking fee and all this stuff. And I could bring my wife, and they like tried to do everything to make it just awesome. But the answer was no. There was zero that I was going to give up a week, because I knew what that meant to my potential for creating the momentum in my life to my goals, which the way I look at it is those goals will unlock those doors being open. So if you think about it, most people don't realize, if you achieve something significant, right? Sell a software company like I did when I was 28, then did it again at 30 and 32. And now, what I do today, you will have those opportunities. But every time you say yes, you're eating away at the potential of you achieving the outcome you're after, which would open up those doors and potentially bigger doors or new opportunities you're not even aware of. And you're risking that, right? Like, one of my mentors, Naval Ravikant, talks about this. He calls it the levels of luck, right? He said, if you decide to focus on mastery and do something, meaningful with your life that other people look at and go, that's impressive. Okay. That's the key. Meaningful is whatever you want to call it. Okay. You're athlete, TV personality, social media, entrepreneur, business, whatever. Okay. Think of Joe Rogan, think of Warren Buffett, completely two different people. But because these people decided to become masterful at their thing, their craft, they now not only attract their own luck, they attract other people's luck. So the levels of luck is like, level 1, you're just lucky. You won the lottery, right? Level 2 is you work hard and you create opportunities and you have luck from that. Level 3 is you've decided to be the tip of spear, right? You've decided to be a master at a thing. Like, my inbox today as an investor is full of hundreds of opportunities to invest. I do not have a deal flow problem. Okay. And because I've decided to become, world-class at software, dude, I get the call from all of the thought leaders, all the people that on the social media. You probably know a lot of these people, right? Like Nathan Barry and many of these people. I'm the guy that gets the call when they're struggling with their thing, because I decided to become the best in the world at what I do. And I just think that because I know that, I can say no to stuff. There's no distraction thing, right? And every once in a while, I'll get convinced that no big deal. Half a day here, speaking at this thing there, and then I'll go do it. I'll be like, shit, I knew better, right? Even the book, like, here's what's crazy. I'm not a professional speaker in the sense that I do not make my living speaking. Okay. Do I charge a significant speaking fee? Yes, because I want somebody, if they really want me, they got to put down the capital and they're going to create the space and they're going to do all the things that I would hope that they would do, that when I show up, there's an audience because I will deliver for that message. But it's not my core business. So even writing the book was part of my pillar, but becoming a professional speaker or traveling around and doing 300 keynotes this year was not part of my agenda. But so it allowed me to say no to all those requests. Oh, I mean, damn. The amount of stuff I say no to, it's bananas.
Oh, I see. I thought you said you had that scheduled. I was about to say,
no, but that's what, like a lot of professional speakers, that's their lives, man. You look at these folks. I mean, I have one of my best friends. He's a professional speaker, and it's not a life I want to live. I don't want to be at 50,000 feet in hotels eating crap airline food, you know? So, and if even, let's say I did do that and I look at what I want to accomplish is not going to be accomplished by me speaking 300 times this year. It's going to be accomplished by building teams and opportunities and marketing strategies and distribution strategies and sales motions and all the things I know how to do, just more, right? And that's why, because I have clarity of vision and clarity of time, I know what I'm saying no to. See, every time you say yes to something, you're inadvertently saying no. You just don't know what it is. Like, Matt, let's say you said, hey, man, I'm going to send my jet and we're going to go heli skiing today. I'm going to send my jet. We're going down to Jackson Hole. I've never been to Jackson Hole, and we're going to go heli skiing today, right? Because I know it's in my calendar, I know what I'm saying no to. Most people don't know what they're saying no to. And they don't value their time. They don't understand what the value of their time is. It's why the core premise at the beginning of my book is the buyback rate. I need to teach people what their time is worth so they can make better time trades. And that's how I'm able to say yes and no so quickly. And honestly, I've deferred a lot of that to my executive assistant because she understands what my time is worth, and she can quickly assess based on demand what works and what won't.
Yeah, I feel like that concept of just opportunity cost for founders and just humans in general is just so hard to visualize. And so you got to have these tactics, whether it's the ones you've mentioned, or, you know, I know Naval also talks about putting in an unreasonable hourly rate to your time. Back in the day, he was doing 5,000. I try to just mark mine at 10,000 and just be very careful at where I'm marking my time based on, is it worth more than $10,000, or, you know, do I need to just say no to this thing? I'm curious, like, as you're kind of going and trying to get from, you know, 8 figures now to 9 figures with your empire, what are sort of some of the people that you feel like you need to put in place for that? And how do you go about getting on those people's kind of radar and enlisting their help in kind of making that vision a reality?
Yeah, it's funny. I'll share this. You know, my house manager, Betty, just brought this in. Okay. And I share this because it's lunch. But again, the macros, like,
looks great.
I don't even know what it is, but I know that it's going to fit my macros because I've decided that a long time ago. Right. And it's that time of day. She brings it in, she puts it here. I keep doing my thing. I share that because people meet Betty and they go, how did you find her? And I go, I have a process for recruiting. I didn't magically discover this like pond of house managers that are just great. I'm going to be like, oh, you need to go to this corner of this street in this city and hold up this sign. And they're going to, like, it's a process, right? But they didn't ask me that. They think that it's like through an agency, a referral process. Is literally a process. And I'll tell you what makes it work is that that we've created a system that will predictably identify top talent, right? And there's 2 ways we do it. We either do it inbound, like our house manager, my executive assistant, and a lot of our roles, right? But as soon as I go director level or above, then it's outbound. I have not hired anybody director level above that was unemployed. That concept, to me, it feels really crazy. Like I can't, like, I don't think there's a world where I would probably, unless it was a friend of mine that I knew that was part of a company and they just exited and they're kind of like in between stuff, I'd be like, all right, we should probably consider them. But just the outbound. So where do I find these people? Like, we hire CEOs to run companies, right? So where we find them, we hire COOs of the top companies in our competitive set that are interested in running the company that they otherwise couldn't run. Right. And we have an outbound recruiter that creates pipeline, right? And they take care of initial conversations and interests and sharing the opportunities. And then I come in and my business partner comes in and we do what we do. And if that requires me to fly to them, or ideally fly them to me, and we spend some time together and we get to know each other, but that's how we do it. So top talent is director level and above is always outbound. You're pulling somebody from another company that's proven. And the key is it's the who, not how. See, a lot of CEOs and entrepreneurs, they think it's I don't know how to do that. It's like, yeah, well, the good news is at scale, let's call it at minimum, 5 million plus in revenue. At 5 million plus in revenue, when you're doing directors or above, you should be working with an outbound recruiting, an individual, somebody that does it, or somebody on staff. I have a full-time head of people and a whole team that does recruiting because we hire so many people. But anybody can hire an executive search firm to find these people. It's just most people have never done it, and they don't even know what they're missing out of, because they're like, well, I don't want to spend, let's call it $30, $50, $80,000 to hire that person. I'm like, do you know how much money you're losing by not having that person in? Some people think it's the cost. I consider it the lost revenue of opportunity, right? By not having a sales director or a VP of sales in my organization that can produce millions of dollars a month in quota, every month that goes by, I don't get that millions of dollars a month in quota. Well, if I'm making X margin on that revenue, then I could have paid for that hire in the fees for that executive search person right out of the gate. And instead, people look at cost, not lost revenue, because they don't have the right talent. It's again, beliefs. That's one of the beliefs that people have to shift. Is quantify it. Look at the numbers. This is a first principles approach. It's what do you expect that person to do in your business? Okay. Are you doing that now? No. Perfect. So if they were doing that, what would that mean revenue wise? Okay. So then the fixed dollar amount that you're going to invest in that person to come in to solve that problem for you, to generate that increase in revenue as a percentage of what you get to keep at the end of the day, it's a 2 or 3 month payback period, and you're sitting on your hands, not making the decision. Let's go.
Great.
I don't like when you say, well, how do you find people? It's funny because like I can literally get any talent I want within 6 to 8 weeks by sending an email or a voice message, period, full stop, not even a second guess of it. Zero. Nothing. And I've had that problem solved for a decade because that was the problem to solve.
And so building off that, right, on the mentorship side, right, you're kind of 10-figure mentors. I know you work with people like Ed Milet. We're both friends with Gerard Adams and others. Like, how are you finding mentors or people that have kind of been on that path that you're looking to go to, and kind of then get in those circles to kind of get some of those secrets and those systems to help kind of unlock maybe any blockages you're having from 9 figures to 10 figures?
Yeah. I just keep asking people who they worked with.
Right.
It's that simple. So like I've asked Ed that question, Ed's my private personal coach. I've asked every one of my coaches that question. Who did you learn from? That's the question. I ask this to everybody. I ask it to my friends because I'm just curious it's almost like the, in jujitsu, and I'm not a jujitsu guy, but I know all roads leads to the Gracies, like there's different lineages so I'm always curious. It's like, if you are a world-class athlete, who are your coaches? Who are your influences? Right? Because maybe I meet somebody and they don't mentor, or they're busy in other stuff. That's fine. I just want to understand, what were your biggest influences in your life? Maybe it was a book, maybe it was a person, maybe it was an event, maybe it was a group. And then I now have the consideration to add that to my list of resources when I'm trying to execute against a goal. Right? So a big thing for private equity and stuff, I have a lot of mentors that are multi-billionaires in the private equity space. And I would just ask them, like, what are the organizations? Who are the people that influence you? Some of them, it was books. I have to read the book. Some of it was events that happen every year. I had to get an invite to those events. Right. And through that process, we get to learn through osmosis. I think you just mentioned that. Like, to me, that is the whole thing, is to get into another room. If you most people that are struggling to get ahead, it's because they are the most successful person in their peer group. Because it's easy, man. It's so freaking easy. I get to go on weekends and drink and party with my buddies from high school. And then Monday to 5, I can feel like a king because everybody looks up to me and everybody thinks I'm so smart, and I'm making hundreds, if not millions of dollars a year. So it's really easy. It's like, man, this is an easy life. But some part of them knows in their soul that they were meant to create more, to do more. And those weekend endeavors and those crazy adventures and the feeling like a king and I could do no harm and everything I say is heard through the gold. Like, everybody's like, oh, wow, you're so smart. That is the blocker. That's the thing that's going to hold them back. right? Because nobody's challenging them. Nobody's bringing them ideas. Nobody's pushing them to become a better version of themselves. On the weekend, they're the big dog with the new truck and the new gear and the new equipment, and all their friends are like, oh my God. And they feel so good about themselves. But yet they know there's more. There's another level. And if anything, they could inspire and serve way more people if they'd be willing to dig into this. So my big thing is from the first coach I ever hired, I was 23 and I hired an E-Myth coach named Bob. Okay, I've had dozens of coaches. I've spent millions of dollars on being in the right places, on the coaching, on the mentorship, because I know that it's always about unlocking skills, beliefs, and character traits, right? Skills, beliefs, and character traits. Anything I want would be in my life if I continue to refine those at the highest level. So whoever's listening, whatever level they're at, they want to get to the next level. They get asked them, what are the skills, beliefs, and character traits I need to incorporate into my life to be able to push even further?
So on that note, last question here. So you talk about this like Gracie lineage for jiu-jitsu, and you've been doing a lot of research to kind of unlock your next level. Where are some of these roads leading for you? Maybe one person and one resource.
Well, everything always ends up, Think and Grow Rich, cybernetics, and the Bible. Like, the Bible is an awesome book. Like, people don't realize that some of the books in the Bible were written by, in today's inflated, adjusted terms, billionaires in their time, right? If the kings, whether you believe it or not, if you just look at the lives, they were written by people that were incredibly successful. Okay, so people talk about the Stoics, etc. These are other lineages, and that's why I love reading old stuff, because a lot of times people think it's what's new that's going to help them. And it's not what's new. It's what's true. Right. And a lot of the new stuff is based on the old stuff, just resaid through their own. I am built by my community. Nothing I'm saying is original Dan Martell. Nothing I will ever do is original me. I am a student, and it just happens to go through me, and I'm inspired by it. And then I share, and I take these concepts that I think are complicated, and I put them into a book, into very simple models and processes, and then wrap them around story and principles and metaphors to hopefully allow them to land with the listener or the audience or the reader. And that's the same thing for all my source material. If I look back, it's honestly, it's the Bible, it's Think and Grow Rich. It's the oldest books, the oldest text, right? And when you look at so just take, for example, Tony Robbins. Well, Tony Robbins was Jim Rohn, and Jim Rohn was probably, I don't know, Nightingale Cohen. Like, I don't even know, but I just know there's this lineage of everybody that from the early days of Napoleon Hill kind of spiraled out different branches of this tree of a thing called personal development that we think is super normal because we hear about it today, but that is not normal. My parents did not hear or introduced to the concept of personal development. They just weren't. Their parents were never introduced to it. They were never introduced to it. Jim Rohn's concept of you should work on yourself harder than you work on your job. That language was never introduced to my dad growing up. Right. So the fact that that's now part of the lexicon of our current culture and our world we live in is cool. And I just think that now it's okay, well, let's double click and really let's understand what that means. It means that the how and the information has been commoditized. AI, I just got off this call with my team on the AI side, getting the output of what we want to achieve, that'll never be the hard stuff. The recipes are done. You don't need to, you don't even need to write copy. You ask it, it does it, right? What will never change is the biological brain energy connection to the work. That part, because we are human, until they can implant us with some kind of device that kind of clears that out, that interface between the knowing and doing gap, the belief system, the worldviews will always be present as the stoppage to actually forward motion. So I would argue that more now than ever, your faith, your spirituality, your understanding of energy and grace and positive mental attitude and personal development, those are the force multipliers to progress, period, full stop. The trying to study and learn how Facebook ads work is actually a waste of time. right? You need to know enough to be able to bring people into your life, but you need to ask yourself why you have a fear of running Facebook ads, why you have a fear of going live on social media and producing video, why you have a fear of hiring that person and delegating stuff because you're worried that they won't do it as good as you. What is that about? Because that's the thing that's going to stop people from moving forward.
Love that, Dan. Well, it's been a pleasure having you here. I appreciate all the contributions to the community you've given us, not just with this book, Buy Back Your Time, but just over the last 20 years. Learned a ton from you. Appreciate all you've done for the community. And for those out there that are looking to buy back their time, looking to get unstuck and build their empire, go check out Dan's new book, Buy Back Your Time.
There's a gentleman, his name is Andrew Tate. You don't have to like him, but you have to respect his ability to command attention and focus. For a period of time there, he became the most searched person on the internet. And here's something that's brilliant about what he's done.